This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is Keith Caputo. He's a singer, songwriter, activist, artist, best known for his lead vocalist work with Life of Agony. It's a pleasure to have you on, Keith.
It's an honor to be your energy.
Thank you. I know it's so interesting. I had Joey Z on, Zoe Zampella, who's your cousin, recently, and he was very excited to tell me about your upcoming UK tour with Life of Agony, which is very exciting. It's coming up very shortly. You're going to be leaving soon. And also, he had mentioned The Sound of Scars, which is a beautiful documentary on the life of the band, but I think a focal point of that is really based on your life. So I know you've had quite an interesting day because today marks a very particular anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's February 11th, and it's 35 years of...
Yeah, Life of Agony. Today was we played our first show, I think, 35 years ago, or something like that.
So exciting, right? Time flies.
I just, I'm just, it's a little strange, to be honest, because I remember it like it was yesterday, We played some dingy pool hall. We had to set up a ping pong table for a stage, and it was pretty wild. No phones.
That's right. No phones, no recordings, right?
Yeah, no post iPhone people, no post iPhone culture.
That's right. Yeah. So do you remember how old were you then?
What was it? 1990, 73, 83. I was 16. No, I was I? I couldn't have been 26. No, I was born in 73, 83. I was 16.
Wow, it's incredible to
Now
think.
I'll be
Yeah.
50, I'll be 51 this December.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So when you think of it, 16, playing a gig, I mean, that's really incredible.
Yeah.
So how long were you playing before that? Like when did you like pick up and start saying we have to have a band, or how did that all come about for you?
I think, Joey and Alan, they were early friends. They went to SVA together. Me and Joey had a couple of different garage bands, This was when you hear that story about people, young friends getting together and hanging out in their friend's garage and setting up and that's what we literally did that. We were literally a garage band, and then Joey and Alan had met, and then we all put together a band, and I think it was Alan who had some crazy dream with a newspaper print, like a newspaper, the wind blowing the newspaper going against something where the Life of Agony symbol portrayed itself in his dream. That's where we got the symbol from. And then it was like, probably already 14, 13, 14, singing lyrics like William S. Burroughs cut and paste style, like using directions from a Raid can and, totally just cutting and pasting stuff and just getting on our way. But at the same time, I was playing classical music. I wanted to go to Juilliard. And that was my original dream. I didn't really want to be in a band. I didn't really want to sing. I'm a very reclusive, kind of like a lone wolf. Like my isolation is my prayer in a sense. I like to be away from, the external world as much as I can, even at a very, very young age, I guess because my surroundings were very, very chaotic and very, very traumatizing, which made me a very, what's the word, introverted kind of human being just to protect my peace. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I couldn't put words to it, but my surroundings made me very reclusive, very lone wolf like, very my cellular system was being set up to be designed to really be like a real artist. You know, I never got married. I don't have any kids. I've never even been engaged. I think my longest relationship with a human was like 3 years. So like I'm really like married to music, the expression of art. I still have a deep fascination for Beethoven and Chopin and Eric Satie and all the great classics. And I don't really listen to the music that I create with the guys and stuff like that, or even my solo stuff. Like you heard the song Raspberry Mockery. Even though my solo catalog is very, very old school rock and roll, it's rooted in like Lennon, crossed with Bowie, crossed with Brian Eno, crossed with Queen, crossed with all the classic kind of Pink Floyd, all that, the Doors, lots of blues. Rock journalists have been getting me wrong for 30 years. They've been calling me a metal singer, but I'm not a metal singer. I've been a blues singer my entire life. We're just suffering from people who can't really write and can't really get deep and do deep dives on people. They look at the one or two albums that were incredible hits for me, and they don't go beyond that, which is very insulting to me. And people have been miscategorizing me for my entire career, if you want to call it a career, but which is, comes with the territory. Because I'm the kind of person, I don't, your perceptions, your thoughts, your words, they don't define me. I define myself. Um, but what was the question?
I no, I think you did really well with that. I wanted, it's so interesting as you were talking. I was like, oh, I have to ask him this because I'm familiar with your music video for the song Selfish.
Oh,
And
well,
oh my gosh, I love that, right? So it starts out, you're like driving the cab, and then you go from driving the cab, and then it switches over, and you're like, what instrument are you playing in that?
that was a cello.
Oh wow, that video is so incredible, and you're like touching the butterflies, and
Yeah,
I
that was all
just
real. That was before any CGI. We ordered butterflies. I didn't like the way they came. They came in these sealed papers, which was very disgusting to me. I didn't know, otherwise I wouldn't have wanted to get the butterflies in the video. But the butterflies, even back then, represented transformation for me because I always felt like I was connected to the feminine, but I was born biologically a man. But what was going on in the inside? I was suffering from womb trauma, and that was because I never had. I was a dirty diaper playpen baby. I was neglected. I was abandoned, and which gave me a multitude of mental disorders, I think, if you want to call it that. Or maybe I'm just a genius child, and I'm being, and the world reduced me to mental disorders. But yeah, my first trauma was the womb trauma, not being connected to my mom, not ever being loved or nurtured. She was a pillhead. She OD'd at 20. I don't even know the woman I came from, which created this trauma for me, which I grew up thinking that, like, why do I think I feel like a woman inside? And I just recently discovered that I have RAD, which is reactive attachment disorder, which is hatred for your father, hatred for my body, hatred for the environment. When you grow up in an abused environment, and you experience this idealization of women. I idolized all the women in my Aunt Joey's mom. I wanted to be Joey's mom growing up as a kid because all the women in my family, by the way, Italian heritage, so Raging Bull, the Goodfellas, all that's real. That's all real. That was the behavior of all the men in our family, which really destroyed me, I think, really destroyed the fibers of my neurological system. And here I am at 51. The trauma will never stop, uh, but I have a tighter grip, and I'm unwinding everything that I've been through and created for myself as well. And I'm really a complex individual, very layered. It's very difficult to be me. Um, but I'm sure it's, we all have our human issues, and there is no life manual to being alive, and knowing that we're aware of this consciousness and this life, and we're also aware that we're not going to be in this body one day. So it's pretty trippy, it's pretty heavy. And my mind is always in that kind of Sacha landscape where it's all about existentialism. And I'm constantly questioning, what am I? Who am I? Where am I going? Why am I? Why am I? What's going on? Like, it's all so intense, man. And it's like, I can't avoid it. Even if I tried, I don't have like normal, dumbed down days. It's very intense. But yeah, I think I veered off your question again.
It's
'Cause that's,
okay. No, you're doing great. I wanted to ask you something because, to me, I just find it fascinating because I'm not musically inclined. But when you first said, I'll sing, how did it feel to hear yourself sing? Like, did you say, like, wow, that's really good? Or did you say, like, I'm just the best in the bunch? Like, because I've heard you sing, you're amazing. My favorite song is Weeds, obviously, right? Which is a classic for LOA. But you really have an amazing voice. So, like, did you hear it, or you had to hear it from other people that you have an amazing voice? Because singers have their own take on how they sound.
at first, I couldn't even really listen to my voice just in a speaking tone. It was very uncomfortable for me, especially in the demo days. Even on River Runs Red, our first landmark of an album, when I listen back, I'm like, oof, like, I really didn't know how to sing, even though I was still a great singer. First of all, I had classical vocal lessons by Don Lawrence. And Don Lawrence is like, everyone went to Don Lawrence. And Bobby from Overkill, Bobby Blitz, right? Yeah, from Overkill. I was losing my voice a lot when Life of Agony was first coming on the scene. And I didn't really know how to control the vibration out of my diaphragm and all this stuff. But he turned me on to Don Lawrence, and Don Lawrence, I started doing my classical, which I still do today. And whatever I was learned from Don Lawrence, I've taken all the do's and the don'ts, and I make my own classical warm ups. So I've lowered my register, I've increased my register, but like I never really liked listening to my voice after, I just trusted everyone else around me. I know I didn't really have pitch problems even back then. First of all, I grew up with admiring the greatest singers like Robert Plant, Annie Lennox, Billie Holiday, Freddie Mercury, Jim Morrison, Iggy Pop, David Bowie. So all them cats I filtered through me. But as I got older, I really learned how to control the vibration that comes out of me, how to create different personalities for different songs, blah, 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 blah. It's all part of the game, but I never really liked the sound. I was above my own head pretty much. But now I know I'm one of the greatest singers on the planet, and probably one of the best singers in the music industry, even though I'm not treated as such, even though I'm very misunderstood and overlooked and undervalued, especially. Same goes for the band. We're a very undervalued band. It's because we're very psychologically deep and we help people. And the system doesn't want that. The system wants to keep releasing this garbage, go nowhere music, Taylor Swift's of the world, Billie Eilish's, just this mainstream garbage that is literally dumbing down the world, even hip hop. Hip hop died with Biggie and Tupac, like even the hip hop artists of today are an embarrassment. And I'm not even in that genre, but like, I know I'm one of the greatest singers. I'm one of the greatest frontmen. I've always been that. And it's not even ego because I'm not egotistical at all. I'm very humble. I'm very earthy. I'm just very confident and know what I can deliver. Every project I've done, every side project, every duet I do goes to millions of views I did a duet with Within Temptation years ago. It's probably up to 20 million views. It sold 15 million copies. Like, I'm one of the best. I'm one of the best, and I know it. I'm one of the real, raw, unfiltered, what a rock and roller really represents. I'm one of the last of the dying breed, like Liam Gallagher, like Scott Weiland was one of the last. Lane Stanley was one of the last, and you know,
I would like to ask you a question. As the songs are introduced, I know that a lot of the lyrics are written by the band, but also by Alan, right? Doesn't he do a lot of the lyric writing?
yeah,
So when you see the song, do you know how you're going to sing it, or is it like tweaking it along the way?
it's everything. Sometimes, Al comes in with a solid idea that's great. Sometimes it just doesn't resonate with me melodically, so I'll use his lyrics, but I'll create a completely different spin. Sometimes, like if you're familiar, like with the Sound of Scars, the album that we did, if you're familiar with the song I Surrender, him and his daughter kind of did those melodies, but at the very end, the band got stuck, but the band will come to me to take them out of this where no one really knows where to go with the song. That's what I love about Joey. Joey's be like, yo, just give it a key and it's going to come back completely different. And then boom, you come back with this orchestrated, bombastic thing. All the piano songs that I've done, you just listen to my catalog, even my solo stuff, and you'll realize what I'm capable of and who I've worked with. I've worked with David Bowie's band multiple times on all my albums. I've worked with Kravitz's guys, Craig Ross, Jack Daly. I've worked with Elton John's drummer. I worked with Miley Cyrus band, people from Veruca Salt, just you name it. I got Flea playing trumpet on one of my songs on a 2007 release that I did in LA called A Fondness for Hometown Scars. I did an album out there. I'm working with Scott Weiland's band, Martine Lenoble. He produced that album. He's married to Christina Applegate. He played in David Gahan's band. He played with Perry Farrell. He played in Porno for Pyros. Just to give you an idea of the types of people that I work with, um, even outside of Life of Agony, which is a very talented band for our genre. We're one of the best too. And I don't mean to sound I just know I trust my taste more than anyone else's. And I know we're an incredible band. And I know why the industry buries us too and why they don't want us to be a part of this dumbing down system. That's why we're always going uphill with this band. It's a sin. It's a shame. I feel like we're very underrated, undervalued, overlooked, and I feel like a lot of people, all these big bands that got all these big managements like Shinedown and all these other bands, like every band you can think of opened up the Life of Agony. Disturbed, Shinedown, Chevelle, Three Doors Down, the Papa Roaches. We love Jacob. Jacob's a good friend of mine. And it's a sin how this band was deliberately buried. And I still feel like we have forces against us that are still doing this to us.
I have a quick question regarding that. You kind of circled around it twice, and I want to see if I think this is what you're getting at. Are they doing this because of your messaging?
No, this was before I started really opening my mouth about what's going on in the world. Yeah. You have people that never even met a trans person in real life that are calling me transphobic because men can never be women. It's and women can never be men. Where you're a female mammal and I'm a male mammal. Just because I identified as female doesn't mean that makes me. You see, I come from the very old world of transsexual. This whole new world has been hijacked by big pharma, big government. They've weaponized parents that don't know any better. They've weaponized the youth. The whole gender affirming care is just complete nonsense. The side effect, like it's everything they tell you is complete opposite of what's going on. And I can't just sit there. I've been through it. I lived through it. I represent all the old world transsexuals that would never violate the rights of women. All my girls that I've known, when I say girls, I'm talking trans women, all the boys that are pretty ladies would never, ever think about violating women's rights and violating women's sports and raping the mind of the young. No child should ever get an irreversible surgery or ever put on hormone therapy because it destroys you. And they know that. They just want to make medical prisoners for life. And that's what's been going on. And people can't see it. The world is so stupid and so dumbed down and so watered down that people, it's like, did you forget that we're mammals? I had gender dysphoria my whole life. You know why they don't tell my story? You know why they don't tell the detransitioner story? It's the most important story of having gender dysphoria because it wears itself out over time. This transitioning of children by proxy, it's absolutely disgusting to me. It truly is. You see, here's part of the problem. We live in a culture that wants everything yesterday. And my message is like, listen, identify however you want, okay? But my message is go slow, easy. I think the minimum age should be 18 years old. In fact, the brain doesn't develop until 25. The problem is everyone wants everything yesterday. No one's patient. It took me 33 years to come out, to start seeing a therapist. Isn't it funny? I saw a therapist for 3 years. They don't even do therapy anymore for the kids or the parents. That's how you know they never tell the stories of people like me because then it destroys all these fake gender ideologies that are going on because it's like, wait, if I was a real woman, how could you go back to being a man? It's like, it's what they do with everything. They're trying to sell all these drugs, pretending like there's no side effects. Meanwhile, please, there's so many side effects, hun. I had to sign a consent form from Beth Israel Hospital knowing the risks I'd be taking once I started hormone therapy. But they're selling it to you. Oh, there's no side effects. It's all complete and utter bullshit. And that's why I've lived through it. I know what I'm talking about. No one can pull wool over my eyes the way they're doing it to the world because the world don't know. The world is clearly absolutely just, I can't believe how dumb the world is getting that we're even having this conversation about a female mammal and a male mammal. It's ridiculous.
Keith, you bring up a lot of good points. The way I see it, it's not just that, but it's what's been going on, and I want to say the last 20 years or so. Because even when you look at people that struggle to lose weight, they introduced a
Yeah.
couple of procedures to lose weight. There was the stomach staple. There was a couple of different procedures. That population of people needed to go through intense therapy and bring in family members to say, if this person loses, 100 pounds, how do you feel? Is your, relationship going to stay the same and all of that? All of that seems to somehow magically overnight disappeared because every commercial you flip, all you're seeing is these injectable medications that now drop all this weight and
Look,
all of those invasive surgeries like stomach stapling and all this other stuff
forget about just
doesn't
that.
seem to be
Now,
happening, right?
now they've introduced the Ozem instead of teaching people how to eat and what diets and proper foods to put. That's why the whole WEF, the WHO, all these three-legged organizations, they're all anti-human. If they cared about humanity's health, they'd be teaching people how to get rid of parasites every day, what fruits to eat to do that, because all cancers, all viruses, they don't exist. You know what they really are? They're parasites. We host parasites that are good for us and bad for us. And people that are very overweight, bad acne, imprints in their face, they're hosting parasites that shouldn't be in the body. They have all these other treatments that aren't treatments at all. And it's just like, look, now suddenly This 400-pound man, we got to call him beautiful and put him on the cover of Cosmopolitan, or a 400-pound woman, instead of teaching her the right foods to eat, the right workouts to do, the right people around her to energize her into taking care of her health. And now what are we doing? We're celebrating dis-ease and unhealthy habits of people. And it's just absolutely, everything is backwards. And it's just like, it's crazy. And then people like me are being ostracized. Suddenly I'm a bigot, I'm fat phobic, I'm transphobic, I'm a racist because I don't believe in the Marxist BLM organization that hasn't bought one bag of groceries for one low income family. It's like such a joke, and I'm supposed to play dumb like every other artist in the industry? No, I'm a real artist. I have real to say, and actually, I enjoy offending everybody. I do. Because if I offend you, work on that, honey. Those are triggers you need to work on. Because you can say anything you want to me, babe, and I won't be offended. And if I do, that means I need to work on my. What this culture is teaching, this culture is teaching a victimhood culture, a poor me culture, instead of really looking into the heart of things. Like, listen, I call myself out. I reached a point in my transition where I took myself off of hormone therapy 7 years ago. Why? Because the side effects was psychotic. I was on hormone therapy for about 16, 17 years. And I still have pains in my bones. I got rashes every time I shot up. I had migraines that I couldn't deal with anymore. I had my libido was stolen from me. It's basically a form of castration, okay, is what it is. It castrates you mentally, it castrates you spiritually. You're a woman, I'm sure you're on the pill, on and off the pill, and how it wreaked havoc on your body. Just imagine what testosterone would do to you, or do to a baby before they even reach their own puberty. They're just trying to create medical prisoners. And that's why they try to hush me up, because I'm interfering with Mr. CEO's end of, look like what they just did in COVID. They had hospitals and doctors killing people for money. No one's learning. And the funny thing is, 4 years ago, everyone was a virologist, everyone was a vaccine expert. Now that died down a little bit and all the truth is coming out, now suddenly everyone's a trans expert on trans children. I got people who festivals that don't want to work with me in the band because all of a sudden I'm transphobic, because I don't want you to make the mistake. Be patient. Let your kid play. Let them express themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. But you don't need drugs to be your authentic self. And you definitely don't need irreversible surgeries, because you know what, babe? All these doctors took an oath not to do any harm. But you know what harm they're not even considering? The traumatic harm. You know how many young girls, and again, this is affecting this whole gender affirming cab, it's affecting more young ladies before puberty. There's girls, I'm following this girl, Clementine, just one story out of thousands that the legacy media won't share, because it affects stocks, it affects this, it affects that, it affects the end game of big farm. There's this girl, Clementine, they gave her a double mastectomy at 13, 14 years old. Not even 5 years later, she's like, Mommy, Daddy, I'm not a boy. I'm not this. I want to go back to being a girl, and da, da, da. Well, guess what? It's too late now, Clementine. You've been misguided by endocrinologists, you've been misguided by pediatricians, by clinicians, by big farm. And now, when you follow her story, the parents, they're trying to sue the gender clinics. It's just a nightmare. And now, this poor girl, Clementine, she's not even 20 years old. She's already had a double mastectomy. I think they took out her ovaries because one of the preventative surgeries that they do before young women or older women, if you identified as a man and if you wanted to live as a man, what they would do before anything, before putting you on testosterone, one of their preventative care surgeries is to remove your ovaries because as a woman taking testosterone, your ovaries could be the first things to be affected. Side effect like your ovaries could get cancerous or whatever because of the testosterone use. So you know what they do? They remove the ovaries right away as a preventative, even before the girl even was on testosterone. It's not care, it's psychotic. They took it to a completely different level. I'll debate anybody on this. I'll debate any doctor. I'll debate because you know what, babe? There's medical turf wars going on, and there's a lot of surgical turf wars going on, meaning there's ethical surgeons that would never operate downstairs on adults or young children because they know how unethical it is versus all the face surgeons that could give a less on because you know what, that bottom surgery for men to female is a nightmare. 4 out of 5 trans women, they stop having sex. You got to dilate that open wound 8 times a day. I just spoke to a girl that I, because I, people, they know my story. They know I'm strong. They're like, how did you beat this? What's going on? I'm feeling the same thing. Well, I spoke to this woman, transsexual woman, this woman, Maya, who already had bottom surgery years ago. She hasn't had sex in 20 years. She can't. It constantly gets infected. It's an open wound. What are we doing to each other? What are we doing?
I think it's a little shocking to me that they're allowing this to happen to people less than 18. I mean, the parents can't jump in and say, let's, say no to this or something.
And they've politicized it to no ends because even in California, I don't know if they even got to the point to release this bill, but if you didn't agree and you didn't affirm your child's gender ideology, they'll take your kid away. It's like they're robbing your kid right under your nose, taking your child away because your child's 6 years old and your child's had a just like I said, these post iPhone kids, the parents, it's also bad parenting too. You got a lot of bad parents. They give their kids the phone to get them out of their hair. Next thing you know, a year later, your little boy wants to be a girl because every other guy out there wants to be a girl now. When I was growing up, it was 1 out of 10,000 people had gender dysphoria or a gender disorientation like me. Now everyone thinks they could go to Costco and buy their gender. This is the difference. This is what's going on. And anyone who disagrees with me is just lying to themselves, like the Laverne Cox people and all these frauds out there that I lost complete respect for because they're not doing right by children. Listen, if the boy wants to dress up as a, let them play. Let them play. I guarantee you. And now look, you have all these kids, all these misguided parents that are taking their kids, putting them on hormones, doing their look what they did to the poor girl, Jazz Jennings, TMC, their whole family. This young girl, she's not even 16. She's already had 3, 4 bottom surgeries because it's getting worse and worse down there for her. This kid ain't even 20 years old. That's normal? No. This is the work of the devil. I'm sorry. And listen, I talk to old world transsexuals that are your age, okay? Buck Angel being one of my best friends. He is a biological female. He knows he's a biological female. You see, there's the difference between people like us who know that, yeah, I identified as female, but you can never erase my biological spacesuit, which is a male's flesh spacesuit. Doesn't matter how many operations you have, doesn't matter how gorgeous you look. You could look like you're coming out of a Sports Illustrated magazine. I'm still born a biological male. You can never change that, no matter how gorgeous you look, yada, yada, yada. Rolling Stone came chasing after me when they first heard that I'm living as a woman. Now they won't even touch me because I shatter all these narratives they're trying to sell in the world. On all accounts, the COVID, the chemtrailing, the poisons in the food, the cancer-causing products and Johnson and Johnsons that are still on the shelf, the parasites that they're calling cancer and diabetes and this is why I'm crazy. No one wants to think. That's the problem. No one wants to go out of their little comfortable lie of a life. People are living lies and they don't want their lies being disturbed by people like me. Real people who care about real people. You're right. I'm a humanitarian. And you know what happened to me? It was once me trying to figure out what was going on in my brain and in my heart and in my soul. That all turned into the mission of protecting women and children as my dog snores.
So so cute. Your dog is very cute. You make a lot of good points though. And I'm glad you mentioned something as big as Rolling Stone. Because you're right. And they're only one entity, right? There's so many other entities that are just doing what they do because they're answering to someone else. And that's what they're doing. They're checking the box. They're like, oh, this is Vogue, this is chic, this is that. But now that you're transitioned, right? So you're transitioned back, now you're not kind of in there checking the box.
I don't fall in line with the propagandized narratives that they're trying to sell. All these companies are woke. They're bought and sold by elitist corporate bankers. I can't even name one real rock and roll writer at Rolling Stone anymore. If they really cared about humanity, Vice, Rolling Stone, Time Magazine, the Daily News, the New York Post, they're all so politically biased. It's so comical. It's even more comical that these people even believe Yahoo. All these idiots, they're still trying to demonize weed. It's like, shut up, man. It's just like,
I know, but it's
oh,
interesting because when you said Rolling Stone, I literally had like a flash in my mind. Growing up in high school in the 80s, that was the one magazine that I made sure I went and I bought, and I would always go to the cover story. I would always, go through that. Like that was my magazine.
me
And,
too. I Rolling Stone.
I really idolized it. Now I don't even pick it up. The last time I bought it, I think Stevie Nicks was on the cover. I mean, literally, I remember buying it in Grand Central. Like I wanted to have Stevie Nicks on the cover, but that was it. It's interesting because as you go back in time and you look at some of the real greats, now in my life, I think one of the greats was Bowie. He was an eccentric guy. I mean, between the makeup, the costumes, the outfits, right? All of that, eccentric, right? For the time, eccentric, right? They covered him. They have no problem with him or his lifestyle or his, rumored lifestyles or whatever was going on. And now, fast forward to where we are now, and it's the same company, but there's different things going on. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of these companies, who knows, they could have been threatened with fear to keep polluting the collective of humanity with lies and these one dimensional political angles. Since when can people pick whoever they want without being ostracized? I don't care if you like Trump or not, or this one or that one. It's like let people like who they want to like, let them vote who they want to vote for. I'm happy Trump won, and I'm not afraid to say that because, first of all, listen, they're all on the same bird. I don't believe in the left or the right. I believe it's one. They're all in cahoots with each other behind the red curtain. But there were certain things that I wanted to see get done. And one of them was to pull men out of women's sports because since when did trans rights become women's rights? And basically trans rights at this point are men's rights. And it's like, how did women's rights become men's rights? I can't even believe. See, this is also, too, how they've demonized people with gender dysphoria. Because if I was Leah Thompson or if I was the first trans person to be on a women's team, I would have said, no, to whoever owned the Olympics, I would have took a stance. I would have taught the world that I'm a biological man. I identify as female, big deal. It's how I want to live my life. I want to be a pretty girl. I think we're all past that. People could live however they want. They could have sex with whoever, just as long as you don't harm anybody. But it's just like the fact that they allowed men to dominate the women's arena. And you know what? Women were complaining all this time, but no one was listening to the women. And even more importantly, now also too, it's the same in the prison systems. They keep putting men like me who identified as female overnight. They're putting these multiple convicted rapists in women's prisons. And guess what? They just added in 2024 over 300 men who identify as women on our tax dollar who already started raping women in women's jails. Our system has no respect for women. They never did and they never will. Because how men like me that want to become pretty women in a few years with drugs and surgeries, how does that make me more of a woman than you?
You know,
It's
Keith,
disgusting.
you make an incredibly big point here, which a lot of people don't talk about either. And in New York City, we have a very big homeless population. And there's a lot of people that are in women's shelters that leave women's shelters because they don't feel safe for that exact same reason. So everyone wants to mention the homeless, everyone wants to say all this stuff, but they don't go down to the core reason why people sometimes are homeless because they refuse to go to their shelters. And to me, that is just pretty incredible. That's like a profound, it's really hard to like even think like that, you know? But that's what's going on out there. And you make such a good point because both of those places, people are there, right? Yeah. They're there because they need to be there. If you're in a shelter, you don't have a home. So that you need to be there. If you're in a prison, you're there because the state mandated you or the federal government mandated you. But I mean, you're trapped basically, and in a situation where you don't feel safe in your trapped situation. So it's such a
Our system is being run by demons. I'm convinced at this point that we're not in no political uprising or upheaval. We're in a psychological and spiritual war between good and evil.
I want to ask you about your upcoming tour to in the UK. It's interesting. Where are you going? What locations are you going? What countries are you going?
It's also Europe too, babe. We're doing London, Birmingham, Dublin, Scotland, I believe. I think every city in the UK. And then in Europe, we're doing Belgium, we're doing Germany, we're doing the Netherlands, I believe we're going out to Sweden and Denmark. Already 10, I think 10 out of the 25 shows are already sold out.
That's amazing. And you're doing this with Biohazard, is that correct?
Yeah. We're doing a
Oh,
cold
wow.
tour with Biohazard, and the band hasn't played with each other in probably 20 years. So I haven't seen those guys except for Billy in probably 20 years too, maybe 25 years. So it's exciting. But I just had my surgery. So part of me, I just want to stay home and heal and rest and lay with the dog and not be bothered by any of that, to be very, very honest. But in my line of work, you can't just bail out. Once you make that commitment, it's like it don't matter if you got the flu or 120-degree Viva, like you got to get up there.
So I wanted to ask you something because, I'm just going to be a fangirl right now.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Hey, thank you for your service.
thank you.
Father was in World War II, and Joey's brother was in the Marines,
Yes.
hardcore.
Yeah.
So, like, I honestly don't believe in war, and because I think the boogeyman is within, to be honest. And there's so much foul play. But thank you anyway for devoting your life to
Thank you.
protect weasels like myself.
You're so funny. I want to be a fangirl for a minute. So, in the touring like heavy '90s time, do you have any great tour stories? Being backstage or any kind of like things that maybe the real fans like me haven't heard or anything that was like a real super cool experience?
Mm, yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, you know? All right, here's a very recent story. I was very, very, very moved. I'm not going to tell you who, but it was a very huge band. Anyway, someone high in the higher ups in that team came up to me, and I was watching Social D on the because LOA, we just play with them. We play with them in Romania with Pantera, Social Agony. Anyway, someone in the higher ups came up to me, was just like, "Oh man, I love you. Great show." It's like, "I really, really love you." I'm like, "Oh man, thank you." You know, I knew who it was, and he was like, "No, you don't understand. I really, really, really loved you. I really, really, really love you. You, you literally saved my daughter's life." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, and this happens all the time, by the way. And this is why I'm very vocal, because I'm changing a lot of lives for the better by being who I am. The heat that I get and the pushback that I get is it's all worth it because people like this and this higher up in the social D world comes up to me, says, "Man, I love you. I'm obsessed with you and how you are on your Instagram and all your social media. You literally saved my daughter's life." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Well, just about a year ago, my daughter thought she was a boy, was hanging out with all the wrong friends, was going to the wrong school, was being indoctrinated by the teacher. My daughter wanted to be a boy. I was fighting her every day about hormones and surgeries and this. I told her, let's go to Mina. This was Mina Caputo at the time. Let's go to Mina Caputo's page. I want to show you this person and what she has to say." 2 months later, turns out to be a tomboy. Was on the softball team. Daddy bought her drums. She's in a band now. She can't even believe that she wanted to be on hormones and wanted to. Basically, he got his daughter back because of a world of just demons indoctrinating the youth. And I get that all the time. And to me, that was a great moment in my touring life where someone as prestigious as this person, I had no idea he knew who I was even. And the fact that I'm getting this from, it really warms my heart. And then you got that own festivals that are talking bad about me in the circuits of the festivals that don't want to work with me in Life of Agony because I'm transphobic now. Because they don't understand. They don't understand anything about the trans community. They don't understand anything about transitioning. And they don't want to listen to my complex story. They're just these slaves that are indoctrinated by everything they hear. And my agent to this festival owner who owns two of the most important German festivals was like, "Well, tell me," I left that video, that detransitioning video number one that I left that got 100,000 views on Instagram. Well, a couple of people saw it and were like, "We never want to work with Keith in the band. He's transphobic." Blah, blah, blah. And my agent was like, "Well, I saw the same video of you, and if there's anyone to describe what's really going on in the trans community, it's this person. Can you please tell me what part of that video and speech was transphobic?" The guy couldn't even answer him. It was just this blind toy soldier reaction, the way everyone is reacting, like just mindlessly, like, and it's really, really disgusting. And I won't stop. I don't care, you know.
Those are beautiful stories, though, I have to say. And also, from watching The Sounds of Scars, I know that your band also has a big message about the conversation of suicide and, depression and
Which is all tied into trauma.
exactly, exactly. And, and that I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about Sons of Scars, but I think everyone should go out and watch it. It's incredible. I went from laughing, there's some funny parts, and then I felt like crying, and there was just so many emotions. And it's just to me, maybe because I'm a New Yorker, but there was a couple of scenes when I saw you like sitting by Coney Island, and I was just like, oh my God, like I've sat on those benches myself. And it just to me really hit home, just it's such true life stuff.
Yeah,
So, do you want to talk a little bit about that for the audience?
yeah, sure. Incredible film. I think Lee Brooks did an incredible job. He's also a big fan of the band. His favorite album was Ugly. And I still live in Brooklyn. I live in Bay Ridge. I hold it down. Um, Coney Island's 10 minutes away. So it's Coney Island and the Lower East Side were my stomping grounds. And I'll be honest. I think it's an incredible film. I think everyone should see it. But now it's old news to me now because I'm already transitioning into this newer, healed version of who I am. I don't really like to say, even if you say detransitioning, I'm not going back. What's happened is that I really worked out really bits of myself and my brain and my heart. I've cleansed the palette of trauma. I've detonated certain traumatic experiences that I've been holding on to in my neurological fibers because that's how trauma is held. um, Trauma you can see on the brain. It's really, I know, follow the science, but I don't really follow science. But in certain cases, I will because you can actually see how trauma darkens the spots of your brain and where trauma hides. Your neurological system is made up out of fibers, and all the trauma is contained in the fibers of your neurological system. And even something like a chemical like magic mushrooms, which I think actually accelerated some of my traumatic experiences into healing. What the chemical does is it detonates the trauma. Like if you were sexually abused, you'd be holding on to that trauma in your body for hundreds of thousands of years, however our system works. But you're carrying trauma from the person that you were in the last body, and so on and so on. Forget about the body that you're encased in right now. That's trauma in itself. And it's all held in the fiber of your neurological system. And it's detonated with lots of plant medicines. And they know this too. But back to the Sound of Scars, like it's a little bit old for me now because I'm already in this new healed version of myself. And when I have watched bits and pieces of the movie, and I'm like, ugh, I can't even listen to myself talk because I've already outgrown that self that everyone is listening to. And it may be new for you, but for me, I'm light years away from that person already because that was already filmed 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm not even that person anymore. So it's like, however, it's a great story. It definitely embarks on the trilogy and the loyalty between Joey and me and Alan. And we've went through 20 different drummers already. So like it wasn't really a story of like, why does Life of Addie go through some, I don't know, drummers just, it used to be the lead singers. Like I used to call it the lead singer disease. The singers used to be the biggest problems in bands, but I think it's drummers, except for Veronica. Veronica's really, she's a good egg, and she definitely fits the glove, the Life of Agony glove. Like she fits us. She's a woman, she's lesbian, she's open minded, she's very talented, and she understands because she's a woman. I think she understands more how to work and deal with three psychotic men, that are like, you know,
You're
I don't,
really something. You really are something, Keith. It has been a pleasure to have you on this show. It has
doll.
been an honor to listen to your story. And more importantly, it has been just truly precious to hear your journey in life. And your journey is not over. You're
Oh,
continuing going and making changes and helping other people with their changes. And I really, that's why in the beginning, that's why I added the activist part, because you really truly in your heart are an activist.
I
And
want people to heal. We're a species we're not right. And I think the merging of the digital world with the biological self that we're the last of the biological people. And they call it transhumanism. It's something I've been reading about for 30 years already. It's the merging of the digital with the biological. And it ain't working out too well, I'll be honest with you. And I just want to see humanity heal. I want people to get a fast shake. I don't want to see women getting abused all the time. It's like, throwing men in women's sports, it's like the new witch burning in my eyes. It's like the new book burning. They're trying to reset the mind of humanity right before our eyes. And I see it, but I'm being penalized for it. So I'm getting emotional because you're acknowledging my true power and you're seeing me for who I really am. And I really appreciate that because there's a lot of people out there that don't want to give me a voice anymore.
well, you
So
you
thank,
have you have a
thank,
voice, and you keep speaking that voice, and you use
well,
social media for what it is intended to do, and that's to get the word out. So you just keep being you, and I want
well,
to roll out with this great song of yours. The great song is called Raspberry Mockery, and it is from the Died Laughing album
yep,
and 1999.
yes, ma'am.
And I love it, and it has a special meaning to me, but that I already told you about. So thank you again, Keith. We're going to roll out with your song, Raspberry Mockery. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thank you again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Paralyzed insensitivity. I smoked a drink, humors coming over me. I sprung a leak on society. Ignorance, it used to follow me. Treachery and hypocrisy. I figured out my crazy sexuality. I'm not the way I used to be. Cleanliness has wiped me off my feet. Keep on, keep it on. Just walk on through and don't be scared. Keep it on, just walk on through. Pollinate another sour seed. Politics, it's criminal and greed. They're buttered up and full of grease. I know you're kind, facades don't work with me. It's warm inside a crucifix. Narrow flow, shame on you, you bitch. The earth's a mess and feeling cowardly. Disrespect, raspberry mockery. Keep on, keep it on. Just walk on through and don't be scared. Keep it on, just walk on through and don't be scared. Keep it on, just walk on through and don't be scared. Keep it on, just walk on through. It's warm inside a crucifix. A narrow flow, shame on you, you bitch. You're still the fool and your perception is bleached. My chances come to purify the weak. Keep on, keep it on. Just walk on through, and don't be scared. Keep it on. Just walk on through, and don't be scared. Keep it on. Just walk on through.